People kind of memed him as the Dorito Pope for a bit there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an old shill. He's been chilling for a long time in this industry.
And on that note, good morning, gamers. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Colonel Frank, and I'm here with your friend and mine,
The parfait.
Why are you the parfait?
Because I can't. I'm solid, so I can't be the drink. So like, I'm not liquid. I'm a solid, so I gotta be the parfait.
All right. I want to read to you a direct quote that you told me in one of our previous discussions. This is going to be the segue into our topic today.
Okay.
I wrote this down. I was listening to one of the edits the other night. I wrote this down. This is what you said, okay?
Yeah.
And I quote, "The game design of MMOs has failed because MMOs back in the day were shitty games that you played because you could play, were shitty games that you played because you could play with other people. And now they're still shitty games you play so that you can play with other people."
Yeah.
Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah. Let's elaborate a little bit. So let's talk about my first point that MMOs are badly designed. So I guess the first big thing with my point was that MMOs at their initial design, they're usually slower games, that are usually technologically a bit, not really on the cutting edge for the most part. Like these are things that naturally kind of come with the genre for the most part. Back in the day, and even today, unfortunately. So that's what kind of my initial point was: is that really the big draw of MMOs and really online games to begin with was really the online communities. The draw of hey mom, look, all these people are real human beings I'm playing with, not just some AI like in Doom or GoldenEye or something. These are real breathing people that I'm fighting against or fighting with or whatever the hell. That's the initial draw of the game, of online games in general. And they take it a step further with MMOs, and now you have, hundreds of players now instead.
Thousands advertised.
Yeah, his
sometimes.
wife. But so initially speaking, really the draw of MMOs, especially for MMOs, is seeing the hundreds of dudes on the same screen. Right? That's like the biggest draw. But as game design, and in terms of actual design of the game, we find that they usually have a bit of issues. For the most part,
Well, they make some concessions.
Yes, yeah. That's the better way to say it.
My opinion is like most genres of games have one kind of thing they're focusing on, right? There are many genres of games where the focus is the gameplay, And it's not like broken down by genre strictly, but some games, the story is their main thing. Some games, like the gameplay is the main thing, the shooting, the gunplay, whatever. Like some games, the sense of community is the main thing. So like every game makes concessions so that it can meet the requirements to support its main theme, right? Mm-hmm. The way I would describe it is MMOs have essentially made all of the concessions in every department except for community. They made a lot of sacrifices so you can have 100 players on screen kind of thing. I call that they've made a lot of sacrifices so that they can have a greater sense of community than other games.
No, I agree. And I think it's definitely on target there for sure. Which is why I wanted to bring up just kind of because when I say that they failed, kind of what I mean by that is they failed to kind of move with the times, so to say.
You said, and I quote, you said the game design of MMOs has failed.
Yeah. So to get into that, the first thing I want to kind of talk about is like the old design of online game, kind of the old internet in a little bit, because you're kind of like me, you're from the 90s, the early 2000s, back when the internet was not in its infancy, but it's nothing like it is now. Clearly, nothing.
The internet was not in its infancy, but internet availability was in its infancy when we were kids, right? The 90s was the beginning of internet ubiquity.
Yes, correct. So what we've seen throughout our lives is that movement from no access to access.
Yes.
People generally not having access to the internet, and slowly over time we get here where everyone has the internet in their palm at all times.
Yes.
So we've kind of seen that whole that whole movement really, which is pretty amazing in our somewhat short lifetimes so far.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up. I feel like this is definitely more your topic, but I do have points that I just wrote down that I thought I could kind of roll off of things you brought up.
Go for it, big
and
dog.
one of the first things I wrote down, and ironically now one of the first things you get to let me bring up is the evolution of like game chat, your chat within games. But in general, I was thinking about this because of what you just brought up, right? The general change in landscape of the non-availability of internet of our youths to now the like over availability of internet in our adulthood.
Yeah.
So game chat, like we should, actually I was looking at other podcasts. You and I think we should consider doing like a gamer origins episode where we talk about our like our gamer past, our gamer credentials.
Yeah.
But I digress. You and I have been playing games together for a long time.
Yeah,
since before high school. So
Yes.
Back in the day, how did we get it done?
I do remember way back when there was like X-Fire.
No. That's like the third one on my list.
Yeah, I know.
You got to go farther than that in your head. That's like sophomore year of high school. I'm talking like before high school.
Yeah, see, before that, because like Steam wasn't around then.
Like Steam was around,
It was
but
becoming.
its like voice codec was not like quality, and its chat features were not like really well fleshed out yet.
Were we using Ventrilo back then?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I want even before that.
Yeah, the one before Vent, I'm like,
I'm honestly kind of shocked you don't remember. Well, and I'm not shocked, but I remember this so starkly because it to me is it's a very large indicator of the times, but it was also a defining moment for me in realizing kind of how I guess like adult bonds and relationships work. I used to criticize my mom all the time for talking on the phone a lot because she wouldn't talk on the phone often, but anytime one of my aunts called, she'd spend minimum 4 to 5 hours talking to her sister. Minimum. If it was Holly, oh God bless, 8 hours, 9 hours, like on the phone, easy. And I used to not understand that whatsoever. But then you and I started playing video games and started playing like online games for the first time, and then it was like, well, we want to be able to. We're playing the game together. We want to be able to communicate. I used to have to call your house, the landline. I would have to call your fucking house from my house and busy both of our entire family's phone lines so we could sit there on speakerphone with the phone just sat next to us playing games with the phone on speaker.
see, I forgot that. Yeah, that is OG shit.
And that would last for hours. We would do it that way for 6-7 hours, a whole session.
Yep.
And that's how we got it done.
Yep.
Back in the day,
Really
all
back in the
right?
day.
That's how we got it done.
So you had to get it done.
Well, that's how you had to get it done
Yeah.
because in-game chat, because Ventrilo, because Steam were not as fleshed out then. Ventrilo Ventrilo is very old.
Yeah.
Ventrilo probably was around, but
But we weren't old enough to have a
internet
fucking-
literacy was not,
Yeah.
or even availability for downloads and things like that. It wasn't. It's not as easy as just Googling Ventrilo download like you can do today.
Well, and even then, like we were like 15, we didn't own a Ventrilo server, nor we have the cash to buy such a thing or have the know-how to run one ourselves.
But my clan did.
Yep.
So after the first thing on my list after telephone calls is Vent.
Yep.
We used Vent for a long time. I know my gaming clan when I was a kid used Vent.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to go kind of deep into like the clan business and events. So let me talk a bit about that stuff.
Oh sure.
A bit actually, because that's a definite big one I want to bring up is just the emergence of these tools. Kind of how they've evolved throughout the years. Like so first, we kind of saw like rudimentary shit like phone calls sometimes even. But then, we started seeing like, Ventrilos kind of come up, more commonly. I remember in my own Ragnarok Online guild, we had our own Ventrilo as well.
TeamSpeak was also pretty common.
Yeah, TeamSpeak was, it's like those two are kind of the big ones
That's
at
what
the
people
time.
used for a long time until X-Fire came around.
Yep.
And then Steam came around and revolutionized their entire system.
And then it's funny that you also bring up in-game chat, because I remember when I was playing Ragnarok, I don't know if you experienced this, but I remember when I was playing Ragnarok Online, there's a bit of some guild beef for a bit because you had like the people who wanted to keep it in, keep all the discussion in game and the in game text chat versus like the Ventrilo people and like, we don't want special treatment for the, all the favorites.
They don't want to split up the community and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then also they don't want special, or they don't want favorable treatment going to the people who are more recognizable because they're in like the exclusive server that only some people download.
Yeah, well, because their voice, because they're actually talking, their voice, and they become their favorites. I remember that being a big drama sphere when I was, in like the 2008 or whatever,
back in the day.
Way back in the day when this topic of when in-game chats became usable, and then people chose to instead, but didn't have voice chat. Yeah, that's the important piece. The place between when games had in-game text chat but before they got in-game voice chat.
Yeah,
that period of time where you had to deal with like the in-game chat, like the text chat, or you had to like do vent or something like that.
Something else set up.
So like in your clan, do you ever experience like that drama of like the Ventrilo people versus like the people who are just in game? Did you remember anything like that?
So we did not have that drama. Oh. Hi, sweet boy.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, do you have anything you want to say for the crowd? That's been a word from our sponsor, my dog Batman.
Yeah, when the dog can open doors, it's a very dangerous situation.
Yeah,
I think it's truly safe.
My wife hates that I taught him that.
You taught him that? I thought you just figured it out.
I figured it out because I showed it to him. I did not teach it to him. I showed it to him. He would fret when people would go through doors. Not fret, but like, he would want to follow when you transition to another room if you didn't let him come with you.
Yeah.
And he would just sit there and kind of jump at the door a little bit. And he started very, 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 very early on. He started to figure out that there's some association between the door hand, like touching the door handle, and the door, the door opening and closing. So he would like jump at the door handle and just hit it a bunch, and it was like very loud and annoying. And I was just like, I kind of looked at him one day and I was just like, no, look. And I just showed him very simply. I just put my finger on it and I like showed him, and then I closed the door and like showed him again. And I was just like, that's how it works. And then he kind of fiddled with, and it took him a while. Yeah. And as you can see now,
now he's a pro.
He's a professional opener of doors. He walks right up to it. He knows exactly how they work. Yeah, he's a very smart dog.
That's good, but it's also bad.
He's incredibly smart, but not necessarily incredibly empathetic. Unlike our other dog, he's not socially smart. He's just raw processing brain power smart.
Yeah, intelligent.
If any of you have a husky, make sure it's not half pit bull. If you have a pit bull, make sure it's not half husky.
Yeah,
because if your dog is half pit bull and half husky, I can confirm you're in for a hell of a time.
Yes. So you don't remember any type of event versus end, but I guess in the first person shooter.
Funny you should mention that. No. Right. Back to point. No. We did not really experience that in my clan particularly much because we started always as a Counter-Strike clan. Yeah. And we started with surf servers and then branched out into like Death Run, Hosties, Zombie Mod, et cetera. But Counter-Strike was probably one of the first games to have a really robust in-game chat system. Yeah. You had team chat, you had all chat, you had voice chat, and I think you also had proximity chat.
Yes.
So you had a deluge of vocal options in terms of communicating with your team, and in general, it was the sense of community for our clan was in the servers, in the games, and also on the forums. So what we saw drama on was over access to private sections of the forums, and like bans and stuff like that kind of stuff, like abuses of power, like those kind of things. Our clan was very, at one point, it was one point I would describe it as like very popular. It had like 80 members or so.
Yeah.
And we had like 5 or 6 servers, had a couple thousand people in the Steam group. And yeah, like it was a lot of fun. It was a good clan. It was a good time. But I digress. We didn't see that much drama with like splitting off people in like vent versus in game. Yeah. But you did see drama with like the people who had access to Vent not having access to like the admin channel, like that kind of shit.
Yeah,
like,
that kind of shit.
You had people who were members but who were not admins, and then you had then you had like your like elite kind of admins above the regular admins. So you had like multiple tiers of middle management bitching.
Yeah, gotcha.
Which is like a 13 to 16-year-old is honestly really fucking cool.
Yeah,
like,
no, yeah.
like your video game clan that you play, there's just a bunch of strangers online you fucking play video games with.
Yeah.
And like you have like politics and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
Like
politics.
you
There's some
have
drama, there's some politics.
it's a real organization.
Yes.
But no, we didn't see we did not see drama from voice chat, but we did see a lot of success in our community because of voice chat, because of that feature and it being a staple in Valve games at that time.
Yep.
We also had Left 4 Dead servers, TF2 servers after a while. Like we were a multi-game clan after a while. Being able to chat directly was very imperative, and as I'm sure anybody who was around then will tell you, if we had something like Discord, which I feel like is the inevitable end point to this discussion, has like nowhere else but to go to.
Pretty much.
If we had an application or a program, a utility like Discord, then like, oh man, that'd have been nice.
Yeah, that would have been really nice.
But I think MMOs and voice chat, the sense of community, I think these things are all kind of tied together.
Yeah, well, and actually, you brought up a point I didn't even consider. Like, again, first-person shooter community, you guys are a lot more, aware of voice chat because a lot of those games, even back in the day, had that shit built in.
Well, yeah, I almost had not an opposite viewpoint of you, but I thought you were going to say something that I disagreed with, but you didn't. But I was going to like mention how like back in the day, in-game voice chat was actually better utilized and more fleshed out than it is nowadays.
Yeah,
nowadays,
in a lot of ways, yeah.
voice chat nowadays is honestly really quite shitty in a lot of games that I've played as of late.
Oh yeah,
and honestly, it usually just feels like it's there for a necessity for people who are going to end up playing it on Xbox or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So that they can eventually use shitty voice chat.
Yeah.
But for PC games, it does feel like just kind of a redundancy that's just there to like check the check mark on the box kind of thing.
Make sure you have it.
Just like, it's a game on the computer with multiplayer. We expect to have voice chat, but it's not like particularly good or functional. And I think that is due to the fact that external applications for voice function has gotten so good.
Exactly.
Namely Discord, but also just the rise of Vent, Xfire, etc.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the whole process. We saw it kind of go from, you kind of saw that transition of people using the in-game tools, and slowly over time, starting to transition to TeamSpeak or Ventrilo or whatever, whatever people were using, to Xfire and so on and so forth. So we kind of saw that whole kind of movement take place, which is, I think, really kind of cool to see, especially at the time of like, I think at the time there was kind of a sense of like losing that sense of community with some of those. But I think until you get like, now it's like Discord, that didn't really happen for the most part, at least not within my circles. Usually like, as we move from tool to tool to tool, it never really felt like we were losing that sense of community really, which is cool. So yeah, when it comes to like voice chat and stuff, it's kind of just interesting to see just kind of, just how things have, I think the first-person shooter thing that you brought up really opened my mind a bit. Was like, because I remember, in MMOs they don't have that feature. So of course,
that's kind of what I wanted to.
Yeah, of course.
Because I was just thinking in my head, I was like, how does this tie back into MMOs though? Because like, MMOs have but most MMOs don't have like a fleshed out voice chat.
Yeah, so we relied on things like TeamSpeak to even be able to, to have this discussion, which is probably why. And in MMOs, people have a different attachment to their avatar as they do in like a first-person shooter game. It's like talking through your character versus talking through your own voice, or two kind of separate lanes.
I'd say that MMOs are also. I've always thought this is true. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, MMOs are kind of the like ground zero for video game clans as a concept. Like
probably
video game, clanning up, clans of people working together as a faction kind of thing. Like I always thought that concept spawned from MMOs and then came to other games like FPSs.
I agree, and that loops me back to my main point about like the game design piece of some MMOs and how they've kind of failed. Because in the past, Like MMOs foster the community by forcing it upon the players by making the games pretty difficult for the most part. When you look at old MMOs,
You mean like they make the content, the PvE content, stuff that you cannot accomplish alone
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Sure.
it's difficult to the point where you have to engage with the community in order to
to proceed?
get anywhere just about
Right.
in most of those old games.
It's a requirement.
Yeah, it's pretty much a requirement.
You can't really go it alone.
And it kind of worked back then because in the in proto internet times we'll call it, you couldn't find out everything by just looking it up. You didn't know that
Yeah,
that
that
instead,
was not a thing yet.
that instead of grouping with these guys to do this dungeon over here, you could solo this dungeon over here.
I want to fucking put this in perspective. If you had a question back in the day, like, and you wanted to find it on the internet, it wasn't just I'll literally just
Yeah.
take my question verbatim and put it into Google or any other search engine, and I'll get a complete myriad of results. No, like back in the day, if you had a question, it was like, I guess I'm gonna go to Ask Jeeves.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna go ask
Ask.com
Jeeves,
or
and then like what Jeeves has got is probably
Yeah.
gonna be the best. Because I mean that was even Kiora, that kind of crap. That
Yeah.
was not around.
that should
Like,
around,
or if it
yeah.
was, there was no getting to it with like easily, no visibility. Like it was, you had Google, you had Yahoo,
Yep.
and if those two search engines did not
Yep.
yield the results you were looking for, you take your shit to Ask Jeeves. That was how you knew you were desperate.
Oh yeah. And that's what I was going to bring up is that just because you had the rightly formatted question doesn't mean someone had the answer and posted it online back then. It's not
Which
like-
is why that sense of community in the MMO
Yeah.
is so important.
what was so important was because yeah
Was so important.
that's why it was so important because there's no other way forward in a lot of those games. No way forward. You had no idea that. You just had no clue, and there's nothing that's just going to tell you, which is why kind of communities and guilds started getting formed. Eventually, they become like a part of like the game design itself, but it was all in service of the way that the internet and internet communities was made back in the day. All of it. But I think as we begin to move forward, what we started seeing kind of pop up around the 2000s was like your kind of like your mid 2000s, kind of like your pseudo MMOs.
According to my chart here, let's see, the mid 2000s is when we start to get your. So I did a little digging and I got like the timeline. You have 1997, you get Ultima Online,
Yeah.
right? EverQuest Online, 1999.
Oh, okay.
And then over the next, this is what my guess is over the next like 3 or 4 years after EverQuest Online comes out, you have people scrambling to react to, oh shit, this is how we do things now. Like this is what's possible. And so over the next like 4 years after EverQuest, you get, you get RuneScape, you get Final Fantasy 11, you get Ragnarok Online, you get Dofus, the one, the Wakfu game before Wakfu was Wakfu.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
You get EverQuest Online 2. A whole deluge of what we think of as some of the you get World of Warcraft. Did I not mention World of Warcraft is in there? You get World of Warcraft.
Star Wars Galaxies is probably in there too.
Star Wars Galaxies. Yep, 2003. So yeah, I'm interested what you're going to refer to as would you say pseudo MMOs? What'd you say?
Yes, pseudo MMOs, like your semi MMOs are popping up too.
So that's when all of like the MMOs, like what we think of as the MMOs, are popping up. So what are the pseudo MMOs that you're referring to?
So like right after that, in like 2008 and such, we started seeing, a little after we started seeing like your Phantasy Star Onlines and like your
Fantasy Star Online is pretty old. Come on.
Oh yeah, it's pretty old. But I'm pretty sure the first one was like around that same era, like the 2002-ish, like that same kind of era.
Yeah.
Like games that had like elements of MMOs, but they're kind of missing like the massive part,
Sure, like console MMOs, kind of.
Yeah, console MMOs, yeah. But even like Guild Wars 1, is another game kind of like that, where the actual content is focused on a smaller party of players rather than like, big content of like 64 plus players, or I think WoW's like 48 or something in like a party or whatever, So we started seeing those kind of pop up too, and then shortly after that, Monster Hunter appear on the PS2, the first Monster Hunter game. So as MMOs started evolving, to mostly try to facilitate having more and more players, you started seeing these other like kind of MMOs kind of pop up and really focus around, more intimate, smaller groups of players. And it's interesting the two directions these two genres kind of went in, because as you keep on moving forward, what you end up seeing is that MMOs kind of fail to continue kind of evolving past that place. They kept on. Even now to this day, they're very similar to how they were back then. You know, in a lot of ways.
Phantasy Star Online came out in 2000. Oh my god!
Wow.
For the Dreamcast.
Yeah, yeah, for the Dreamcast, yeah, and the same kind of eras when the MMOs are popping up. You know, these other kind of MMOs were kind of popping up.
Other game, I mean, sure, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah,
when the technology, you know, in the early '90s, I think, early to mid '90s, when the technology came around to really implement like strong. Oh no, actually, I was researching this. I didn't research deep into this part, but what I read about is actually it was the reason you see like Ultima Online coming out like 1997 and then all this stuff coming out at that time and afterwards is in 1995 something changed about the way they were regulating the internet. And so I believe that there were access to the internet before was regulated in some way by the government.
Interesting.
Or by some regulatory entities like most networks are.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
So in 1995, I read somewhere on Wikipedia. This is very, very convincing and accurate information, I know.
Yeah.
But somewhere on Wikipedia, I read in 1995 they changed something about the who has access. So after 1995, for the first time, video game developers have access to the internet for multiplayer like MMOs. See, there were like some like MMOs and like proto MMOs that have existed for, you know, like decades before that.
Yeah.
But they were all I guess like, well, that implies that they were all like supposed to be or had to be played on like a local network.
Yeah, because I know like the Super Nintendo in Japan had like that satellite add-on, for example, and that's supposed to be one of the first examples of like some kind of internet-enabled console. Yeah.
But in America in 1995, the government said, okay, video game publishers and developers can now use the internet
that makes
for
sense.
video games.
Before that was a lot of LAN.
Bam.
But mostly before that was like LAN play. It was like Quake and shit. You had lots of LAN type stuff. Yeah.
Precisely.
And then because that's not right. That,
I think what we are actually seeing is I don't think games like Phantasy Star are necessarily a reaction to MMOs. A little bit, I'm sure, but I think it's probably the concurrent, you know, video game developers taking advantage of new technology that's just been made available to them, and we're seeing how that affects multiple genres.
Yeah, true. Yeah. It's mostly just a different implementation of a similar idea of you know, can we, you know, instead of focusing on, well, one is just the limitation of the console. You know, we're looking at a Dreamcast. It's probably just not as feasible to have.
No, when I read that, I was like, shit, man, Phantasy Star came out on the Dreamcast. I mean, that is ambitious, dude.
Oh yeah, that's ambitious as shit.
That's crazy.
That's ambitious as shit. Yeah, and same with like Monster Hunter, like another like co-op action RPG game. Like 2002, I think, was the first Monster Hunter game. Shortly afterwards. But yeah, so as we keep on moving through time, I think when it comes to MMOs, there's a weird thing that kind of happened when kind of WoW popped up and kind of really made like a template. Really kind of made a template of how you kind of do these things. Like, you know, like the multiple faction thing in WoW really fostered a community. You know, you had the people who were
I think EverQuest into WoW, I think.
Yeah, that whole thing.
The combination of those two is like, okay, yeah, like a cooldown based ability system, skill trees, like that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, this is the template.
Yeah, but even like things like a horde versus alliance system, you saw that being used in a lot of MMOs afterwards. Some kind of faction but that really fostered the online community, because again at the time, like, you know, there wasn't like huge discords, there weren't like huge ways to like contact a lot of people, you know, so it was very intimate. Even MMO was very intimate. You know, you were a horde. You can only talk to people from your faction. You only PvP'd against people from the way back in like vanilla WoW and Burning Crusade. You only talk to people from your faction. You only PvP'd against the people from the other faction in like the battlegrounds and shit. Like, it was very intimate. Yeah, you know, a lot more.
That's a good way of describing it. Yeah. The MMOs is kind of interesting, but like MMOs are all about having like 100, you know, real motherfuckers on screen. Yeah, the most amount of people you could ever have, and in that way, it creates like the most intimate gaming communities you could have.
Yeah,
because it creates real communities, and I wanted to bring this up as well when I got around to talking about Star Wars Galaxies. What during this like early phase of MMOs that you were just talking about, this like 99 2000 to like 04 or 05, like this early 2000s kind of era, before WoW kind of comes along and really solidifies builds upon and solidifies what EverQuest put forward, you really get like this kind of wild west of like people trying different shit. And there seems to be more focus on creating things for the community to do rather than creating content for the player to play, right?
Yeah,
like
that's a big point I have on my sheet actually as well. I'm glad you
like,
brought it up.
I guess I'm saying I see where you come from on the game design is kind of like a failure in and of itself, because they're not like, well, I don't know, is it a failure? Because like in one sense it's like a failure from the sense of it's not, the games themselves are not like intrinsically satisfying to play.
Yeah.
You play them for all this other shit we're talking about, the sense of community, yada yada yada. At the same time, you're talking about how the game design used to be, and maybe still is, it's difficult or impossible to progress through alone, so you have to engage with other people. I mean, that's the game design succeeding, isn't it?
Yeah, well, what I was going to start moving into now is, so all that old stuff is very community-based and everything, but what I think ended up happening is, as games continue to mature and become more popular, you started seeing people branch off into games that interested them more than an MMO. Because eventually what happened is, instead of being forced to talk to your friends while you're playing the same game, now you can be playing Counter-Strike, I could be playing Ragnarok online, and we can both be talking to each other. Still, you know, I think once we started getting to that point,
and that's the beginning of how friends no longer play games together, folks.
To move forward from there,
There's two dudes making a podcast about playing video games. There's two dudes who have not played a video game together in probably 10 years.
It's been that long, but it's been a bit.
I mean, we were on that League of Legends kick for a while.
It's been a bit.
That's not a real game. So
it's not a real game.
So I mean, it's like the last time you and I like sat down and actually played a game together. Yeah, probably like a decade.
It's been a long time. Yeah,
because of this.
Yeah, because of this exact thing. Because
now we can just both sit on our asses at home playing the video games we'd like to play, being player one, but still talk.
But instead of playing like a shitty MMO or like some other game, now people can play something else. So what ended up happening is you get into this thing where like in WoW they start to try to deliver more content. If we can release more content to make it worth it to the players, they'll all stick around. And while that's true, what also ended up happening is, because people have so many options these days, you have to make the games more appealing to a wider market. Games in our era were a lot more niche in general. They're a lot more focused on their niche audience. And at the same time, you started seeing games become more popular. So then all of a sudden now it's like, okay, we can't just focus on the sweaty nerd who wants to role play with his fucking orc or whatever, and wow, like now
it's kind of similar to like movies. Where movies, you had like the era of like directors with their vision directing movies.
Yeah.
You kind of have like the same thing in video games, where you had like directors with their vision directing games, and then it slowly gets bigger and more mainstream, and then you have like more studios.
And I mentioned intimacy a few times, and as MMOs started making this transition, trying to appeal to a wider audience out of necessity, because the first M in MMO is what? Massive. So you can't just have 10 players or 20 players or 100 players, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in order to make all this work. To make everything even spin, all the wheels spin.
To keep the lights running on a game that's always continuously in development.
But so this contrast is then with like Monster Hunter or something. This is a game where you could play the whole fucking thing solo if you want to. Yes. And if you're playing multiplayer, the most you can have is 4. You only need 3 other people, to even have a full multiplayer experience.
But you don't have to have a multiplayer experience. You can play the entire thing without even realizing it's there.
True. Yeah. So it's even more intimate, because now you are, you're engaging with it solo, or you're engaging with like 3 friends, or like a tighter knit group of people. Sure, it's not as big, but it's closer knit.
In a way, yeah.
And especially
kind of similar to like Dark Souls in a way. I feel like people who, especially at the time, there's like people who play through Dark Souls. The farther through that game you play through, the more camaraderie you feel with other people who've gotten to those points, because I think that's really encouraged by and created by the little message system, where you can that little tiny that's like the tiniest sliver of like a multiplayer aspect in a single player game, like that and the ghosts and stuff, right? These tiny little minuscule elements of like multiplayer functionality where
some kind of interaction,
where there's other people going on. Yes, it's hard to identify it as that, but I realized at the time even it's community.
Yeah,
that is establishment of community, and that is allowing your players to literally to communicate with one another when they otherwise would not have been able to, in what would have otherwise been a just completely single player experience.
Yeah, complete single player experience. Because even when you look at like the Monster Hunter games before World, where like the matchmaking was a lot less, and they didn't really have much in this form of like automatic, smooth matchmaking. What you saw is like an even tighter knit community back in those days of Monster Hunter, because you had to go to the gathering hub, and you had to go into a specific room, and you had to find specific people. Usually you hunted with those dudes for hours. If you did that, if you went through all that, you probably hunted with those dudes for hours. So I can think, again, as you see things become smoother and more accessible to a general populace, you also lose in that intimacy and in that sense of community with like the new Monster Hunter games as well, where you're just in Wilds. I mean, you basically it's fucking automated just about in Wilds.
There's barely there's barely a lobby system. It's just like it's like you're in or you're out. You're in multiplayer mode or you're in single player mode.
Yeah, it's just so integrated now.
At least if your PC can fucking handle both of those. If your PC can handle it, that's what it's like.
So you kind of see that happen with MMOs, where they can be, as they become smoother and more accessible, out of necessity to facilitate the M in MMO. The first MMO, you saw a less and less intimate game just continue to happen, but you still have all the issues that the fucking genre basically was born with. You still have extremely clunky server-based games that deliver a lot of really shallow content, to all make up for but on the surface of the fact you should be talking with other people. But now we've lost the community now too. So now what we're left with is games like Final Fantasy 14, for example, which is like a modern MMO, which has basically cut out all forms of challenge, all forms of customization.
I knew the call out was coming in.
Oh yeah. I mean, as much as I like the game, I do like the game. I love this game.
Don't worry. I'll let him know. What he means to say is Final Fantasy 14 is his second job.
Yeah, this is my second job.
He never quit his second job.
But the fact of the matter is that the game has cut out most of the RPG elements. The game has cut out almost all the community aspects, because now you can just queue with random
you got
people
houses
whenever
and stuff, don't you?
Yeah, you have all that stuff, but my main point is that all the issues that this genre kind of grew up with, like, are still there.
Still present.
Like, the server ticks are still a huge issue. We're still playing, like, a cooldown. We're still basically playing, like, a EverQuest 2, but faster now.
Those are staples of those are all staples of the genre, aren't they?
Yeah,
exactly. If you take those away, then what are you left with?
A good game like Monster Hunter or something.
Game. Yeah, you're left with something that's not
good.
An MMO. I think there is this weird kind of, like, maybe it is just nostalgia, but there is this, like, cling to wanting to play an MMO.
Sure.
And I think it is for that sense of community.
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. Factual for sure. But which is why I'm surprised to see. Well, not surprised to see. I guess my big point is just, it's just interesting how they've struggled to be able to maintain the massive while maintaining the community at the same time. And what we see now is MMOs are kind of their genre in trouble. The genre looking for some innovation.
I think. Well, you as a player are looking for that. I think the way I would say it is it's a genre where the communities are very strong, despite the games being very weak.
Yeah, I think that's almost just giving him too much credit.
I mean, do you think that MMOs are like MMO, like subscription like levels and stuff like that are actually on the decline to the point where it's going to significantly affect the genre in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think if it wasn't for WoW and Final Fantasy 14, games that are are impossible to not be successful almost, given their prestige.
But that's literally twice the amount of MMOs that we've ever had before.
True. True. I think it's more of like a, how to say it, like more of like inevitability of the genre right now, where there's games coming out that are delivering similar amounts of content,
just more
that are free to play,
all the same. Yeah,
and we are,
you and I feel that way, but I'm not sure if everyone else. I'm not sure if the predominant audience and demographic who play MMOs feel that way.
No, I feel
like some people think that that's the only way or the best way to experience a game world where like you can live in or like you can affect it.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I would mostly agree, but then my last point here that I kind of want to tie everything back into is kind of the re-rise of like creative sandbox games, because basically between MMOs of the past and now is just like you said before, that creative element in play. the
Yes.
and MMOs have basically lost that in the modern.
I agree.
They're mostly just content delivery trucks. These
I agree.
days.
If I can hop back
Yeah.
on it for just a second,
Yeah.
you mentioned how we talked in our previous discussion about like theme park MMOs and what that means, and
Yeah.
you talked about like how WoW has kind of evolved into that. How Final Fantasy 14 is definitely that like quote unquote theme park MMO thing where it's like we put you on the rails and then they send you through and you experience the content as they deliver it to you.
Yes.
Whereas back in the day, you had like sandbox MMOs, which is like here's a world and a bunch of mechanics and maybe a story and whatever, and you
Figure it out,
go
bud.
around and figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Go fucking. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go fucking get 10 rocks for this guy, and then you're gonna get 10. You're gonna go kill 10 wolves for this guy, and you're gonna and like that's it. You're just gonna figure it out from there. And then God, the necessity of fetch quests for MMO and how fetch quests evolved to infect other games can be another great side topic for another day. But perfect example of a sandbox MMO as described, Star Wars Galaxies. Yeah, like you mentioned, like how the kind of creativity of the gameplay has gone to the wayside in favor of this kind of more automated content delivery system.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when I was researching this topic, is something I was really stunned by was I was going back and just thinking about even just thinking about the games that you and I played, Draconica, Dragon's Nest,
these like random Korean
fucking
MMOs.
RuneScape.
Yeah,
I was playing RuneScape when I was 11 years old.
So I don't know if you know this, or I don't know if the audience knows this, but like RuneScape has seen a bit of like resurgence these last 6 years.
No, I mean, I feel like how do you not know that? If you're gaming adjacent, I feel like you know about the. Like like RuneScape has gotten so big, it's like casual. It's like you see like people like who don't play video games just like with RuneScape on their phones and shit.
Exactly. Well, I mean, even this year, RuneScape had its peak player count of all time.
God, really?
This year.
Wow.
Yeah, old school RuneScape.
It makes you think. Like I'm man, I wonder if I could still log into my old account from when I was like 13 years old.
I definitely can't. But yeah, but then the reason why I wanted to bring up RuneScape in particular is because we've seen like a re-rise of like creative games. You have Minecraft was kind of the start of like these creative like sandboxy games kind of getting a resurgence.
Yes.
We saw like Minecraft, and we saw Fortnite, and now we have like Roblox.
Fortnite ain't no creative game. There's a building mechanic. That don't mean shit.
No, I mean, that's the last time you played Fortnite. There's a whole creative mode. There's like a whole mode of the game. There's like you can make your own game modes in that game.
It's like Roblox.
Yeah, you're just like
okay.
That's what I mean. Yeah, these re-rise of these creative, like make your own game modes, make your own sandbox
make
world,
your own game within the game. Games.
Yeah, make your own game. Yeah, these ultimate creative options.
It makes you wonder why people don't release like the Source SDK or like the level editor for any of their games and shit anymore. Or why communities don't encourage modding more often.
True. Yeah,
like they used to, but like they just don't anymore. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, I agree. I was shocked to remember like kind of what we used to have and what we've lost. Like I think I basically agree with you. Like game design of MMOs has always been kind of shitty, but it was okay because there are games that you weren't playing, for the game. You're playing for kind of everything else that comes with the game. Yeah. Oh, another one I forgot to throw up in there. Gaia Online. That's not really an MMO. That's like a weird that's like a weird like social media website combined with video game like MMO
like Tamagotchi
mechanics.
Plus a form, kind of.
You know what? I'm sorry I even brought it up.
That was what an era.
But if you look at a game like Star Wars Galaxies or even RuneScape, you see that the focus on content and like the actual like monsters and mechanics and the math, like that kind of stuff in gameplay, like it's there, but it is secondary to what we describe or what we've been talking about as like the more important roles in an MMO. It's secondary to like the community, the environment,
discovery,
the politics, discovery, economy.
Economy's a big part of RuneScape these days.
Exactly. Any old MMO like Star Wars Galaxies, in my opinion, any good MMO it should be, because that's part of what makes all the other concessions that come with playing an MMO worth it. That's what makes sitting there and spamming and grinding and doing all the that's what makes the grind worth it. Is when you can go back to town and then fucking sell your loot, or when you can engage in like a real active market, you know, where you can go back and due to your efforts or due to your contributions or whatever, you get to rise up through the ranks of your clan or through your guild or whatever. Your real clan, your real guild, not some fucking shit in the game that like not some tab in the game that is like escalating your rank per fucking gameplay. Like in real life, you have real other people who are trying to get certain things in the game and get certain goals done and things you're trying to do as a group, and advancing those goals will get you like better status in your real life group of friends.
Yeah, actual clout.
Your online group of friends.
Yeah, your online. Yeah,
or as we used to call them, your not real life friends. Yeah,
yeah.
It's crazy, but it's really cool.
If we had more time, I'd love to get into like online friends that like then and now as well. Because like for example, I met some online friends at Evo this year. You know. If you had more time,
for the first time kind of thing. Yeah. Well, we have like mutual online friends where we're like pieces.
Yeah.
Someone we've almost met several times that we're still trying to meet.
Yeah. Just like how that's changed over time. Where back in the day it was like, scared, don't talk to people online. But now like, it's just a lot more, Yeah. If you had more time, we can get like, I think that's also a fun topic is just online friends kind of topic. I think that's, you can see how all that's changed. Like stranger danger type shit.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to save some of that discussion for next time. I think this has been a solid introduction to... I think this has been a solid gateway discussion into many other topics about online gaming then versus now. But you'll have to tune in for those in the future. Ladies and gentle gamers, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure talking at you this morning. If you want to support the podcast, if you want more content just like this, support us at patreon.com/goodmorninggamers with a Z. That's patreon.com/goodmorninggamers with a Z.